Welcome to Chapter 17, the Digestive System, and we are going to begin by talking a little bit about the functions of the digestive system and the structure of the wall of the alimentary canal. Sorry, my voice is a little rough this morning. So, the digestive system is a tube that runs through the entire body, beginning here at the mouth and ending down here at the anus. So it is a single, complete tube that that just makes its way through the body. And so it begins at the mouth and then into the throat, the pharynx, and then from the pharynx. And by the way, that's how you pronounce that. It is pharynx. I think a lot of people try to make that a 3-syllable word, and it is not pharynx. The esophagus is the tube that leads from the throat, or the pharynx, down to the stomach. So here's the esophagus. The stomach itself, then the small intestine, which is the lighter pink-colored region here, that leads to the large intestine beginning here at the cecum. And from the large intestine, waste material then travels through the large intestine down to the rectum, where it can be stored briefly, and then it evacuates the body through the anus. Associated with the alimentary canal are accessory organs that assist in the processes of both mechanical digestion and chemical digestion, and we'll talk about the difference between those two in a minute. These accessory organs include the salivary glands, which are found up here in the mouth. We have 6 different salivary glands in the mouth. The teeth that are used for mastication along with the tongue. Then the liver, which provides a big service in producing bile and in managing the metabolic processes, or many of the metabolic processes of the body. The gallbladder, which stores the bile, and the pancreas, which, along with the endocrine function that we have discussed a fair bit so far in the course, the work that it does producing insulin and glucagon and managing blood levels of glucose. It also produces a fair number of digestive enzymes that are used for chemical digestion in the body, and other chemicals, not just digestive enzymes. Other chemicals are involved too. Okay, so those are the pieces parts. What is the function of the digestive system? Well, first, of course, we have to do ingestion, where we bring food into the alimentary canal through the mouth. Then we do mechanical digestion, which is all about just taking a large chunk of food and macerating it and converting it into smaller bits and chunks of food. This is all done with the teeth, the tongue, and the motions, the mixing and grinding motions that we associate with the alimentary canal. Chemical digestion is the conversion of food from large polymers of chemicals into the monomers that make up these polymers. So we're actually chemically changing food. So I'll give you a quick example here. A protein is a string of amino acids, and there are 20 different amino acids in the body. So imagine that this is a string that is thousands of amino acids long, and the job of chemical digestion is to break the bonds between the amino acids, to break these bonds, so that we have, in the digested food, we have the individual amino acids broken apart from each other. The same with starch. Let's say we're talking here about the carbohydrate starch. It is subunits of glucose that are linked together by chemical bonds. It's a branching structure, so the glucose molecules, the individual glucose molecules, are hooked together, and the process of chemical digestion breaks the bonds between the glucose molecules so that we have just individual free glucose molecules circulating then in the blood to be used by the body. So processes of chemical digestion don't actually break the amino acids. So an individual, it'd be easier maybe to show you an individual glucose molecule. So here is an individual glucose molecule. There. So each time you see a little connector, that's where one carbon is in a glucose molecule. This is an oxygen molecule. And then attached to each of the carbons is a hydroxide group and a hydrogen. Okay, so that's all of the I'm going to just make these go away here. All right, so there's the chemical structure of a glucose. We don't break these chemical bonds, so we're not about breaking the hydrogens away from the carbons or the carbons away from each other. That's not what chemical digestion does. It doesn't break down the glucose. All it does is separate the glucose molecules from each other so that they are easy to transport through the body and easy to bring into the cells. That's the job of chemical digestion. We will break the glucose molecule apart when we make ATP, but we can use the individual subunits. So all of these different amino acids that we've made here, we can use those to very quickly build the proteins that we need in our own body. We can use the glucose very quickly to build starch in our own bodies. We don't have to assemble them all the way from scratch because in digestion we only break them apart to the subunits. Hopefully that makes sense now. I almost think of these subunits as like little Lego bricks. So it would be like having a Lego brick castle that is in one shape, and you break apart the Lego model and then reassemble it as a car, so that you are using the subunits to make the structures that you want to make, rather than the structure that was made by a plant or was made by another animal that we've eaten. Okay, so ingestion, mechanical and chemical digestion, and secretion. So fourth function is to produce and secrete chemicals like acids, enzymes, buffers, water, by the accessory organs that are associated with the alimentary canal. We also move the food along the alimentary canal from the mouth all the way to the anus. And as we're moving that digested and digesting food, we absorb the materials that have been digested from the lumen of the alimentary canal, that's the interior of the alimentary canal, out into the fluids that are surrounding the alimentary canal. So if we're looking down the barrel of the small intestine, for instance, we've got amino acids and sugars that are making their way through the alimentary canal, and we bring them across the wall and out into the fluids around the alimentary canal, and then on into the blood and the lymph. And then finally, there's a lot of waste left over. There's a lot of materials that we cannot digest, chief among them being cellulose, what we think of as dietary fiber. That dietary fiber, we can't digest it, and so we eliminate it from the body as feces, and that's defecation or defecation. So we defecate, we defecate ourselves. Okay, so when you look at the wall of the digestive tract, going from the inside across the wall, there are 4 layers. The innermost layer is the mucosa. As the name would suggest, it's a mucous membrane. Then the next layer is the submucosa, a connective tissue layer, followed by 2 layers of muscle. First circular muscle, then longitudinal muscle, and then the outermost layer is the serosa. Also, well, we'll discuss all that. So looking at the mucosa, it's the innermost lining. It's a mucous membrane that has an epithelial layer where all the glands are found that secrete mucus, that secrete digestive enzymes, and other fluids that are associated with the digestive tract, most notably water. There's a connective tissue layer, a basement membrane, referred to as the lamina propria. And then there are embedded in the mucosa some smooth muscle cells that help to just keep it kind of nice and tight and folded up. So the mucosa has these little circular folds in it. This folding allows the small intestine, say, or whatever layer it or segment of the alimentary canal we're talking about, it allows it to expand some as food passes through without ripping. So it's like an extra, you've got these extra little folds there, sort of like, I don't know, my skin. It's kind of folded so that it can stretch a little bit as food passes through it without ripping and tearing. And then when we get to the small intestine, it's highly folded into finger-like extensions called villi, which provide lots and lots of surface area for the absorption of the nutrients that we've made. The submucosa is superficial, if we're imagining this as being the outermost area and this is the innermost. So superficial to the mucosa is the submucosa. It's the pink layer that we see here, and it's a pathway that allows for the blood vessels, the lymphatic vessels, and the nerves to branch and spread throughout the alimentary canal layer. Then there's the muscular layer, which is superficial to the submucosa. The deepest of the 2 layers is circular muscle, and so the muscle fibers are arranged around the perimeter of the tube. So as they contract, they will constrict the tube, making it smaller. Longitudinal muscles run the length of the tube. So those fibers, and it's all smooth muscle, of course. These fibers run the length of the tube, so as they contract, the tube shortens. The muscle fibers are under autonomic control, both parasympathetic and sympathetic control. And if you recall, sympathetic, I always have to, the way I think about it is that the one that sounds so sweet and kind, oh, so sympathetic, that's fight or flight. So it's kind of opposite in my mind. So the sympathetic division is the fight or flight division. The parasympathetic division is rest and digest. So in general, the general rule is that parasympathetic stimulation causes contractions of the muscle, while sympathetic stimulation inhibits contractions of the muscles. That's not 100% true, but that's kind of a general, that's the general idea. We get a lot of mixing movements and propelling movements when the parasympathetic division is stimulating that muscle. And then the outermost layer, the most superficial layer, is the serosa, which is the same material as what we've talked about forever as the visceral peritoneum. So just like there are two terms for the outermost layer of the heart, there are two terms for the outermost layer of the digestive system, the serosa or the visceral peritoneum, and it is found only in the abdominopelvic cavity. So that means the esophagus and the mouth don't have a serosa associated with them. But when we get to the stomach, the small and large intestines, and the rectum, there's serosa there. And because the liver and the pancreas are found in the abdominopelvic cavity, then they also have a serosa. It is a serous membrane, and so it produces fluid, the peritoneal fluid that is there in the peritoneal cavity, lubricating the movements of the organs as we move the body or as those organs move themselves. Okay, so there you have it, an introduction to the alimentary canal with looking at the structures, the accessory organs associated with the alimentary canal, and then the construction of the alimentary canal.